This week I have got 3 mind-blowing cozy comfort recipes for you. I've got this coconut tamarind salmon curry, this butterbean mushroom and leek bake. The other cozy comfort recipe are these lamb harissa meatballs. These recipes are all high in protein. The full recipes can be found in the description. Drop me a comment, let me know which recipe is calling your name, which one you're most likely to try out first. For more of my recipes, more ideas, more inspiration, you can head over to my website. Go check out all of my recipe ebooks over there at www.tishwonders.co.uk. You are going to feel the love that I have poured into each of these recipes. Let's do it. Let's go. This cozy comfort meal has all of the elements in a recipe that I love. It is satiating. This is food that is going to satisfy you, make you feel amazing, and the flavor combination, unmatched. The coconut and the tamarind paired together, honestly, with all of the spices, this is one that you have to try. Ultimately, this is a one-pan dish, such a special way to prepare salmon, and so simple as well. So for this recipe, we are of course going to be needing some salmon fillets. We're going to be using the coconut for the creaminess, and as mentioned, the coconut pairs so well with the tamarind paste. If you're unfamiliar with the flavor of tamarind, it's kind of got like sweet and sour notes. It works really well in savory dishes. Don't worry if you can't find the tamarind paste, the curry will still be delicious without it. If you can, it definitely adds an extra oomph, which I really enjoy. Spices that we're going to add in include cardamom. I love adding in whole cardamom pods as they are, like just crushing them a little bit. That's how I like to do it. We're also going to be adding in lots and lots of curry leaves. We're going to be using cumin seeds, some curry powder, along with a few other spices. We're going to throw some red peppers in there. I found these gorgeous red peppers on the weekend at the farmer's market. It's like the very end of summer produce that I'm still kind of holding on to, but you know, ready to let go of at the same time. But I found these gorgeous peppers. I'm going to add them in. We're going to be using lots and lots of ginger for this curry. This recipe calls for lots of lime juice, so make sure you have a couple of limes on hand. And we're going to be using tons of coriander. I say tons, but you can use the amount that you enjoy. I know coriander is not everyone's favorite. I love it personally, so I add in a lot, but you know, work the recipe to suit your own palate, to suit what you enjoy. I'm going to serve my coconut tamarind curry with some white basmati rice. You can serve it with some quinoa. You could serve it with some sweet potato. You could serve it with a side of greens, whatever you want, work it. So we're going to start off by preparing our salmon. When I prepare my salmon, I always remove the scales. I give it a wash. This is how I like to prep my salmon personally. So yeah, I just make sure that the salmon is patted dry with some paper towel, and I just seasoned up my salmon, just a very light seasoning because the curry sauce is going to do a lot. It's going to have a lot of flavor. So I placed on top some salt, some pepper, some garlic powder, gave it a splash of tamari, a drizzle of olive oil, a good squeeze of lime juice, and just set it aside. Different recipes call for different shapes of me cutting onions. This one, I just kind of wanted like thin slices. Sometimes I want them finely cubed, but yeah, so I thinly sliced my onions and I thinly sliced the garlic as well, and I chopped the ginger. If you want to get a more like fiery gingery taste out of the ginger, I would definitely like grate it. It just releases more of the flavors, but today I just felt like chopping up my ginger. I then followed on by finely slicing up some red peppers and some fresh chili. The next step was to heat a pan, so I grabbed my pan and I heated up some ghee. Actually, I love ghee this time of year. I love ghee all year round, but especially like when it gets cold, I just want ghee. I just want my food cooked in ghee. So I threw in my onions, my garlic, and my ginger, and I just kind of like cooked it on a low heat. I then threw in my spice seeds, so my cardamom pods and my cumin seeds, and just continued mixing everything. If you'd prefer to toast your spices in the beginning, you can do that. After a minute or two, I threw in the fresh chili along with the chopped peppers, seasoned with some salt, some black pepper. Just continued to let everything cook down, everything sweat, everything release all of their flavors. I then threw in the curry leaves and the tamarind paste and just mixed everything well. Once everything was combined, I poured in my coconut milk, followed on by the spice powders, so some curry powder, garam masala, some turmeric, and I threw in a little touch of tomato paste as well. So I let everything just kind of like heat very gently, just letting those spices, those wonderful spices, cook down and release all of their flavors. So once the coconut sauce had thickened up a little bit, once everything had reduced, maybe after like 5 to 7 minutes, I went ahead and I placed in my salmon fillets, as you can see, and I just poured some sauce sauce over it before I covered up the whole pot and just let everything cook for like 10 minutes or so. You can let your salmon fillets cook. You can flip them over, cook them for like another 3 to 5 minutes. You just obviously want your salmon cooked thoroughly, cooked properly. But once it is cooked and it is smelling, just so amazing in your kitchen, you're not going to be able to resist. You're just going to want to eat it straight away. You can scatter over some fresh coriander, squeeze over some lime juice if you want to. And then, just serve this wonderful, heavenly coconut tamarind salmon curry up. Serve it with some rice, serve it with some quinoa, some sweet potato, whatever you fancy. The feedback that I got from this salmon, 10 out of 10. Not that I needed feedback because I already knew it was a 10 out of 10, but if you try this salmon curry, you will not be disappointed. Guaranteed. If you love salmon, this one is going to be on repeat in your kitchen. This is my butterbean, mushroom and leek bake. Every time I cook this one, I am left speechless. It's one of those dishes that you take a bite and you just cry, like real tears. It is that good. The cheese sauce that we're going to whip up combined with the butter beans and the leeks and those garlicky mushrooms, and then we're going to top it with some extra cheese and then some breadcrumbs. Let's just do this. Let's just get into this one. This recipe calls for butter beans. Butter beans are having their moment, and I'm loving this moment for butter beans. I can't get enough of it. I am such a fan, and they should be held so high because they are such a fantastic versatile bean. If you are buying them from a supermarket or from a store, you want to make sure that you get a good quality butter bean. We're also going to need some cheddar. I just chose to use medium because I kind of want it to melt, and I find that mature cheddar just doesn't melt as well as like mild or medium, so that's why I'm using medium, which worked perfectly, by the way. I've personally never made a vegan version of this, but I'm sure it would work using, say, like vegan cheese or making your own cashew cheese. You could definitely adapt this recipe to suit your preferences if you are plant-based or vegan. So for our cheese sauce, we're going to be adding in some Dijon mustard. Need a little bit of Dijon mustard in there. So we're going to be using some mushrooms and leeks. It is autumn, it is fall. Just sounds like a match made in heaven to me. So yeah, mushrooms and leeks. We're going to use some shallots, some garlic and some thyme for this recipe as well. And lastly, to top our butterbean, mushroom and leek bake, we're going to be using some breadcrumbs. You can make yours, from some like bread that you have on hand, or you could buy them, whatever works best for you. So let's start off by making our really, really simple cheese sauce. So yeah, I grabbed and heated a pan on like a low to medium heat, and I placed in some butter, just melting it down. I followed on by throwing in some plain flour. So I just whisked everything for like, say, like a minute to a minute and a half. And then I threw in my milk. So you can use whatever milk you want to use. I had some almond milk on hand, so that's what I used. So yeah, I just poured in my milk. Once the milk had heated, I threw in my grated cheddar, and yeah, just continued whisking everything until I had this super luxury, gorgeous cheese sauce. So to season, I threw in some black pepper along with a little bit of grated nutmeg, and I threw in that Dijon mustard as well. So once the cheese sauce was smooth and it was prepared, I set it aside and I continued cooking up the rest of this dish. So I finally chopped up some garlic along with some shallots. If you don't have shallots, white onions will work fine. So I cut my leeks into kind of like sideway wedges. Not too thin, not too thick, just somewhere in the middle. And I made sure I gave them a good thorough wash. You want to make sure you wash your leeks properly. I followed on by slicing up my mushrooms. Again, not too thin, not too thick, somewhere in between, before heating a pan on like a medium heat and throwing in a little bit of oil. Into the heated pan, I threw in the chopped garlic and shallots, just cooking everything down for a few minutes until everything was softened. Then I threw in those sliced mushrooms and some fresh thyme. I cannot cook mushrooms without tamari. Like, it's a real thing. If I see mushrooms, I instantly grab tamari. If you don't have tamari, don't even worry about it. Salt will be just fine. I am going to add some more salt, by the way. But if you do have some soy sauce or tamari, splash that in. And then, yeah, just cook your mushrooms down. I then followed on by adding in the sliced leeks. I threw in some salt, some pepper, and yeah, just continued stirring everything until everything had kind of like reduced just a little, before throwing in the butter beans, swirling in that gorgeous, luxurious cheese sauce, and mixing everything well, making sure everything was combined. I mean, if you want to eat it like this, it will be absolutely delicious. I would recommend holding out just for like 10-15 minutes or so and just finishing the last final steps, which is to add in a little bit more black pepper if you want to, and throwing on those breadcrumbs and putting in the oven and baking it, because my goodness, yeah, this step is everything. So I threw on a little extra cheese just because I wanted that melted effect on top and then threw on those breadcrumbs. I topped with some mixed herbs, just a mixed dried herb blend, and I drizzled over a little bit of olive oil just because I want those breadcrumbs to go crispy in the oven. I placed this butter bean, mushroom and leek bake into a 200 degrees Celsius oven. I only left it in there for about 12 to 15 minutes until it was bubbling away. It had gone a little bit golden on top. That cheese had melted, the breadcrumbs had gone golden. When it was looking just irresistible like this is when you know it is ready to devour. And that's exactly what I did. I did not even serve this up with anything. I had it as it was. I had every intention to cook up some greens. I was like, I'm gonna have some greens on the side. No, I could not. I couldn't hold back. I couldn't resist. You cook it, you will know what I'm talking about. So maybe prep your greens whilst it's in the oven. That's a good tip. Put it on the plate. It was piping hot. And let me tell you, I enjoyed every last bite. This recipe right here is truly amazing. It is so damn good. These leeks are cooked to perfection. Combine that with like those garlicky mushrooms and that cheesy sauce. I could finish that whole pan in one sitting. This one's perfect for the holiday season. If you want it extra kind of festive, even go and throw some sage in there. That would be delicious. Unreal. These are my lamb harissa meatballs, packed with flavor. We're gonna make a rich tomato sauce to go with them. Listen, if you want a good meatball recipe, you have to try these. If you want to omit the lamb and make them vegan, I'm sure tofu would work. With all of the seasonings and different ingredients that I'm going to be showing you that I add in, they would still be so delicious. So ingredients include some harissa. This is a store-bought, supermarket, shop-bought harissa that I have. It might sound a little strange, but don't knock it until you try it. We're going to be adding in some chopped apricots to our lamb harissa meatballs. Harissa and the apricots merge so well together. We're only going to be adding in a few apricots. We want the hit of apricot very subtle. Other ingredients for our meatballs include breadcrumbs. We're going to be needing lots and lots of fresh herbs, so some parsley and some mint. We're going to need some tomatoes. I'm using some passata, but if you only have chopped tomatoes or plum tomatoes on hand, that will be fine. We're going to be adding in some coriander seeds. I'm going to serve mine with some couscous and some roasted carrots. You can serve your lamb meatballs up however you want to. So we're going to finely chop our onion, and you do want to chop it quite finely because we're going to be adding half of the onion to our meatballs. So yeah, make sure you chop your onion as finely as possible. And then same with the garlic. You can either finely chop it or you can mince it using a garlic crusher. I'm going to continue on by prepping the other ingredients. So that includes finely chopping up our apricot and finely chopping up all of our fresh herbs. So our fresh parsley and our fresh mint, we just want to chop it all down. So into a large mixing bowl, we're going to place in our lamb mince, followed on by half of the onions that we chopped and half of the garlic. The other half is going to go into the tomato sauce, so just set that aside. All of those fresh herbs, so the fresh parsley and fresh mint, our dried apricots, chopped apricot. Of course, we're going to add in our harissa paste, followed on by some salt and some black pepper. I added in a little bit of garlic powder and some cumin seeds, and then I placed in the breadcrumbs, followed on by an egg, which is obviously just going to bind everything together, making sure that everything was combined well and that all of the lamb mince was seasoned and coated and covered. So shape your meatballs into something like 12 to 14 mini little meatballs. Yeah, just shape them and get ready to cook them up. So I grabbed a pan and I heated it on a medium heat. I threw in a little bit of oil and then I placed in my meatballs, just making sure that they were cooked all the way through. You want to cook them for like maybe 10 to 12 minutes, just depending on the pan that you're using. And make sure your meatballs are thoroughly cooked. They should have like a gorgeous color on the outside. Make sure they're nice and like kind of golden brown on the outside. And yeah, you can then set them aside and we're going to prepare our tomato sauce for the meatballs to go in. So in the the same pan with all of that flavor, we're going to throw in our remaining onions and garlic, and we're also going to throw in a really small amount of coriander seeds. We definitely don't want it overpowering, we just want it subtle. So I just continued cooking the onions down until they were soft, along with some salt and some pepper. I threw in a little bit of harissa paste. Remember that the harissa is going to vary depending on what brand, what type of harissa you're using. Some will be spicier than others, so you just be the judge of how much you actually want to throw in. So you want to make sure the onions and garlic have properly cooked down before you throw in your tomatoes, whether that be some passata, chopped tomatoes, plum tomatoes. Yeah, throw in your tomatoes. I placed in some dried herbs. I think I used herb de Provence, but you could use any kind of herb blend that you have. I threw in a little bit of sweetener. You could use maple syrup, you could use honey, you could use sugar. This is because I just did not have time to really kind of like cook that tomato sauce down for the tomatoes to release their sweeteners. If you've got time, perfect, but if not and you just want to add a little sweetener because it needs to kind of just balance it out, then do that. I then placed my meatballs back into the tomato sauce, gave them a little cook down for a few minutes. I served my meatballs with some couscous. I also roasted up some carrots like I mentioned, and I threw some toasted almond flakes over with some extra fresh herbs. Flavor packed to the rim. These are unquestionably the most delicious meatballs that I have ever had, and I am not just saying that, they are incredible. She's always eating, that's why I get told a lot. The harissa in those meatballs really shines through. I love the pairing of the sweet apricots with all of those fresh herbs that we packed them with. If this video doesn't want to make you jump into your kitchen and get to cooking, I don't really know what to say. I do not know what to say. These recipes are truly something else. I hope that they've given you that push just to chop up an onion, get in your kitchen, get to cooking, explore flavor combinations that you maybe wouldn't have put together. Just be open, give things a try. Most importantly, just enjoy the process of cooking in your kitchen, of just nourishing yourself. Really hope you feel these recipes have provided you with something valuable. Remember, all of my ebooks, all of my recipe ebooks can be found over on my website. I will see you all in my next video. See you all soon. Bye.